bone. And just to show how this referendum produces the unlikeliest bedfellows, we're also joined here today by the former Coventry Labour MP, Dave Nellist, now chair of the Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition. He's campaigning for a Leave vote, which puts him in the same company as the likes of Nigel Farage, Bill Cash and Karen Lumley. Are you sitting comfortably, Dave?
Well, we're not in the same campaign. Tusk is the third national organisation that applied to the Electoral Commission for the right to run the whole of the Leave campaign. Unfortunately, they decided to choose not only the Remain one, but the most suitable Leave campaign from their point of view. But we're not sharing platforms and doing the same campaigning.
Isn't the reality of it that the campaign for a Leave vote de facto is actually dominated by arguments about migration and so on, which is actually not really core to the left of centre agenda?
Which is precisely why Tusk applied to be the Leave campaign, because arguments on austerity, arguments on EU plans for privatisation, for reduction of workers' rights, for opposition to nationalisation, for an agenda which really is Thatcherism on a continental scale, is not being heard in this because of the overlapping agenda between the campaigns, which suits them to talk about big business issues, and immigration is one of those issues.
Well, we weren't talking about big business issues in that movie there, and we heard of a really benign effect of EU migration into places like Herefordshire with an ageing population, economically productive young people joining the workforce there.
Well, I came down from North Yorkshire to Coventry 45 years ago, stayed, got work and raised a family. So I start from the principle people should have the chance to choose to live and work where they want to. But most people who are moving around these days are either fleeing wars or coming from low-paid countries. If the EU was part of the solution to this problem, they'd be raising the minimum wage throughout Europe so people didn't have to leave home to come to the higher-paid countries like Germany and Britain for work.
What would you say, Karen, to your party colleague, Jessie Norman, who we saw there really extolling the virtues, the benefits to a county like Herefordshire of these migrant communities coming in?
I see the benefits in Redditch. I mean, we have lots of Polish workers. We have Polish
Would make it more difficult for them if we leave the EU?
I don't think we're talking about those people who are here. I think if you only have to look at the television night after night, you know, we're looking at France and near Calais now. I was in France 2 weeks ago. The camp there is horrendous of people trying to come over to our country. Why do they want to come here? Now we see, well, it's not a siren, but now we're seeing all across down the beaches, you know, people being just traffic smuggled in. And paying lots and lots of money. That's the sort of thing we want to stop, and we don't want that kind of behaviour. We've got to be able to control our own borders, and we've got to be able to control our own immigration.
That's refugees fleeing wars in the Middle East, which the last 2 or 3 governments have had a lot to contribute to. That's entirely different from people looking for work in other parts of Europe.
Adrian, how do you deal with the argument that is running very powerfully on the doorsteps that leaving the single market is an acceptable price to pay for regaining control of our borders, which is running very powerfully in the Black Country?
Well, what I would say that the Black Country is the heart of Britain's manufacturing area. It is vital in the supply chains for the booming motor industry and the aviation industry. The foundries in my constituency are a vital part of the supply chain, and they depend enormously on being able to recruit from Eastern Europe in order to fill skills gap. These people are not taking the jobs of British workers, they're filling the jobs for which we do not have the skills locally. And just a minute, Karen, if we didn't have them, then our vital industries, our vital manufacturing exports would be damaged as a result.
But what we're saying is, you know, under a system like a point system, that the skills that we need in this country, we would be encouraging them to come to this country. That's what we're saying under the Vote Leave campaign. We want to get back the sovereignty of our own country. This is our country. It's different to the rest of Europe, and you know, we are bringing in some refugees. We promised 20,000 to the end of 2020. We're bringing in
somebody has to do those unskilled jobs in Herefordshire. That's the issue.
I was going to say the point system is actually a bogus answer. What is driving migration from Eastern Europe in Britain is the lack of skills in some areas and the absence of people willing to do work.
I just want to ask Dave at this stage how you take on this argument that the bulk of the organised left in this country puts, that workers' rights, maternity pay, holidays and so on, better guaranteed by the EU than by a Conservative government. And in fact, Momentum, Jeremy Corbyn, the big unions all take that side.
Jeremy and I were elected in 1983 on official Labour Party policy against the EEC, and we campaigned throughout the 80s and so on those bases. And it's factually incorrect to put that position about workers' rights. For example, equal pay was won by the women sewing machinists in Dagenham 5 years before the Equal Pay Act, 5 years before Britain joined the EEC in 1973.
But you're on the different side of the
but
argument.
maternity pay, Britain is much higher than the EU minimum. So it's not the case that the EU has given us these rights. In fact, it's taking away trade union rights around the country. It's taken away in France, it's taken away in Greece, it's taken away in other places as well.
Okay, we'll pursue all